An AEW star makes a plea for a CM Punk return, and CM Punk responds. Plus, why did Ricky Steamboat turn down Ric Flair's last match? And Brock Lesnar's next WWE opponent may have been revealed. It's all in the wrestling news right now. Oh, it's been a hot minute since we did some CM Punk news, isn't it? You saw the thumbnail and went, oh yes, we're talking about CM Punk again. It's been too long, Daddy-O. Well, here we are. So, Dax Harwood has taken over William Regal's Gentleman Villain podcast in the same way that the Doctor regenerates. Like, Regal was there 1 minute, and now if you click on the podcast feed, oh, it's FTR with Dax Harwood. All right, that's a thing. A meaty episode dropped just the other day, all about his relationship with CM Punk. Lots of nice things to say about CM Punk, and lots of stories that we don't hear about CM Punk behind the scenes. How he was reluctant to become AEW World Champion. He said he wasn't something he was looking to do, but was happy to go along with it if that was what Tony Khan wanted to do. He talks about how CM Punk would give gifts out to the locker room. I believe he gave gift vouchers to the women's locker room for Christmas and said, look, hand these out and don't say they're from me. So there's lots of nice stories in there about CM Punk that probably don't get reported as much as they should be. One of the big things that came from that is Dax Harwood's desire for CM Punk and the Elite to make amends. He said on his podcast, this is my plea to all four guys, Punk, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. Please find a way to make it work. If we can make it work, we can set up the future of professional wrestling for a long time, and we can change the course of professional wrestling for a very long time. When you think about it, unselfishly, we're doing this for 20 to 30 years down the road, so guys and girls can make a living. And his words were very impassioned. He was saying, look, let's break bread, let's make peace, let's move on, let's get back to where we were. Now, the Pro Wrestling Podcast shared on their Instagram the news story about Harwood's comments. And they put the caption, let's just shake hands and say sorry, lol. No, but seriously. That's what it said. Punk directly comments to this with simply writing, duh. That's his reaction. Duh. Would that suggest to you, and I guess that's open to interpretation, like, is that something that you think means that CM Punk could potentially be up for a chat? Duh. I don't know. That's his response. Duh. If someone other than Billie Eilish says duh, how do you respond to that? How do you read into that? Duh, obviously. We'll keep an eye on that one. Certainly one to keep an eye on. Could the wildest story of 2022 be undone in 2023 with CM Punk coming back to AEW? Who knows? Who knows? Emma made a return to WWE this year. She was talking about it on Out of Character, the podcast with Brian Satin, and she said about her return to the company, it would have been within a few months after Triple H returned. I was working with Impact and my contract was coming up. Maybe even without realizing it, I had this idea in mind that maybe I'm done with Impact and maybe there are other options I should explore and see what's possible. That was probably coming from me watching WWE and seeing all these awesome changes and Triple H, what he was doing. And I know I had that kind of rapport with him and all that stuff he did in NXT. Probably in the back of my mind, I started thinking, I wonder if I could actually go back to WWE. It was within a short time after that, probably a month or two, we ended up in touch. He actually said to me that he'd been meaning to reach out even sooner, that I'd been on his list and he'd just been swamped, basically. Next thing you know, I'm actually back. And she is. It was a surprise to see Emma make a reappearance in WWE. I don't know in terms of long-term what the plans are to have Emma there. I know that she fits in the sense that WWE want, as Fightful Select reported, they want TV-ready female wrestlers who can step into roles on Raw and SmackDown and lead storylines and stuff. And Emma very much fits that category, doesn't she? She very much fits as somebody who could easily get in there and get amongst it on TV again. She's already been doing stuff. She's been there's been tag matches with Madcap Moss, so there's obviously a story there that they're making. But there's lots of mileage for someone like Emma, I do believe. Let's talk about from a return to a final match. Let's go to Ric Flair's last match. One of the more curious stories of 2022 was Ric Flair's last match. And it was meant to be. There was a thing that did the rounds that said that one of those set to be involved in that match was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. That didn't end up happening, but then Ricky Steamboat ended up having his career-ending match a few months later and just looked incredible. So if Ricky Steamboat was match fit, why did he turn down the chance to work with Ric Flair one more time? Well, he talked about it with Bill Apter this week. And he said he had a meeting with Conrad Thompson about doing Ric Flair's last match. The Conrad who was promoted the whole thing invited Ricky for a chat, and he said, I was still training pretty good and feeling pretty good. So I said, okay. Now, we hadn't signed or sealed the deal on the money part of it, but what put the nail in the coffin is about a week after I found out Flair was wearing a pacemaker. All these years, I never knew. I immediately just said, you know, I don't think I want to do this. I don't want my legacy to be that I was in the ring if he happened to pass away or something went wrong. I've done some interviews after that where they found out, and I said, no, this is the first time coming public with this. I don't want to throw Conrad or Flair under the bus. So there's your reason behind it then, because there's no like bad blood. I know there was some speculation about being some ill will or some bad blood between the two, but what it comes down to is that Ricky Steamboat felt uncomfortable wrestling Ric Flair, who was wearing a pacemaker. And I must admit, Ric Flair didn't really endear himself to people concerned when in the press conference he said, oh, if my pacemaker stops, I'll just restart it during the match. Oh, Adam Pacitti and I did live reactions to that, and whilst we weren't literally doing that, mentally and figuratively we were watching that match through our hands. No more, Rick. Have a sit down, have a cup of tea, everything is fine. Heading into Royal Rumble season, we talked in our last video about a potential Royal Rumble surprise being scrapped already, but let's talk about Brock Lesnar being involved in the Royal Rumble. And we've talked about how the roadmap for Brock Lesnar seems to lead to Gunther at WrestleMania 39, which I'm really up for. I'm buzzing to see Gunther and Brock Lesnar potentially at WrestleMania. But along the way, there's another person that wants a piece, and that's Drew McIntyre. So on Sony Sports Network's Namaste Drew show, which is Drew McIntyre fronted show on WWE India, he talked about a whole bunch of things, but then he actually called out Brock Lesnar for the Royal Rumble. He said, I'll take him at Royal Rumble 2023. I want to get that extra victory over Brock. If Brock and I cross paths again, it's gonna be a battle. That's what Drew McIntyre said, which is tantamount to a call out of Brock Lesnar for the Royal Rumble. Now, obviously, Drew McIntyre's not around at the moment. He's suffered an eardrum injury that's keeping him out of action. He is confident and optimistic that he'll be back in time for the Rumble. We could have a Drew-Brock Lesnar showdown at the Rumble. Whether or not it'll be a match, I don't know. I could certainly see them squaring up in the Rumble match itself. I don't see Brock winning the Rumble, but I'd love to see Drew and Brock face off in amongst the Rumble. That'd be pretty cool if we don't get a match from them. Let's do it that way. Let's have them square off in the Rumble itself. But this is all part of Lesnar's journey, according to reports, to Gunther at WrestleMania 39. And Drew McIntyre's a pretty good tune-up before facing Gunther on the grandest stage of them all. Check out the Cultaholic podcast feed right now, by the way, as I, along with Jack Atkins and Cultaholic.com's editor-in-chief, Aidan Gibbons, we go through the biggest news stories from Cultaholic.com of 2022. Now, obviously, it has been a groundbreaking year for news. Some massive stories breaking, the all-out, brawl-out, fallout, Vince McMahon leaving, Triple H coming back. But there were some really quirky stories that seemed to capture the imagination of the Cultaholic.com readers. It's a bit of an unusual look at some of the wrestling news of the last calendar year, and you can check that out on the Cultaholic podcast feed. Search Cultaholic wherever you get your podcasts from to find that. It is waiting for you right now. And for the latest wrestling news throughout the day, you can check out Cultaholic.com. There you go. Stay safe and love you. Bye.